It was an unusual day for Elon Musk. Known for his intense work schedule, overseeing groundbreaking projects like Tesla and SpaceX, Elon rarely allows himself time off. But that afternoon, as the sun set over Austin, Texas, something urged him to step away from his routine. Perhaps it was the pressure of endless meetings, or the big decisions about the future of humanity. Whatever the reason, Elon found himself craving a simple pleasure from the past: a burger at a diner. Pulling into the parking lot of a modest burger joint, Elon looked like an ordinary person. Dressed in a simple white shirt and khakis, he walked into the restaurant unrecognized. The aroma of toasted bread and crispy beef greeted him. For someone who was constantly in the news, the lack of attention was refreshing, a rare moment of normalcy. As Elon stood in line, hesitating between a double cheeseburger and a bacon burger, he overheard a hushed conversation from a nearby table. Two boys, who looked to be about 12 and 14, were sitting next to an old backpack. Their small but urgent voices caught Elon's attention. At first, he thought it was just a casual conversation, maybe about homework or video games, but a single word stopped Elon in his tracks: thief. He glanced over, curious. The older boy, Lucas, was leaning closer, his face tense. The younger boy, Ben, looked worried, biting his lip as Lucas spoke in a voice filled with urgency. "Tonight is our only chance," Lucas said, his voice heavy with desperation. "Without money, Mom won't get better." Ben hesitated, his voice shaking. "But what if you get caught? Stealing is wrong. You know what happens to people who get caught." The word mom struck Elon hard. He could see the fear in Ben's eyes and the weight on Lucas's shoulders. These weren't just kids thinking of mischief. These were two kids on the brink of helplessness. As the whispers continued, Elon's mind began to ponder. What had driven these two children to such a decision? A medical emergency? Financial ruin? He didn't know. But he felt the gravity of their situation. The thought that they might lose their future just to save their beloved mother was too much for Elon to ignore. Elon's instincts kicked in. Problem-solving was second nature to him, whether it was building spacecraft or tackling global challenges. But this time, it was more personal. He couldn't walk away. Not this time. Taking his order, Elon quickly made a decision. He returned to the counter, ordered 2 more burgers, and formulated a plan. A few minutes later, he walked toward the boys' table with a gentle smile, a bag of food in hand. "Hello, kids," he said, his tone friendly and non-threatening. "May I sit here? I think I ordered a little too much food and need some help finishing it." The 2 boys froze, eyes widening as they recognized the man standing before them. It was Elon Musk, the billionaire inventor and entrepreneur. But in that moment, he wasn't a celebrity or a CEO. He was just someone who cared. What happened next changed the lives of the 2 boys forever. As Elon sat down and began to talk, he discovered a story of love, sacrifice, and a desperate attempt to save a critically ill mother. And by the end of that conversation, Elon not only offered a solution, but also affirmed that even in the darkest of times, kindness and compassion can always light the way forward. This story is more than just a chance encounter. It is a testament to the power of kindness and human connection. Watch as Elon Musk turns a simple meal into a life-changing moment for 2 kids and their families. Elon walked into the small, cozy restaurant filled with the aroma of grilled meat and freshly baked bread. Under the soft yellow lights, he stood in line and ordered a burger and fries. Everything here was simple, from the old photos on the walls to the simple cashier counter. For a billionaire like Elon, this moment was like returning to a simple part of life he had experienced long ago. As he was browsing the menu, small sounds from a nearby table suddenly reached his ears. At first, they were just whispers mixed in with the noise of the restaurant. Elon paid little attention, thinking they were just children's trivial stories, gossip about video games or school tests. But then, a few words slipped through his thoughts and made his steps stop. Mother. Sick. Medicine money. curiosity quickly turned to concern. Elon glanced toward the voice, trying to identify the source. In the corner of the cafe, two boys sat side by side. Lucas, a skinny 15-year-old with a determined look in his eyes, and his 13-year-old brother Ben, who was huddled with a tense expression. A worn backpack lay on the chair next to them, and a piece of paper with scribbled notes was in the middle of the table. The two brothers seemed to be engrossed in their own conversation, unaware that Elon's eyes were fixed on them. Lucas leaned close to Ben, his voice low but full of emotion, as if he were holding back an invisible fear. "If we don't do it tonight, Mom won't get another chance," he said, his voice shaky but determined. Elon felt a wave of unease rise up inside him. He couldn't hear the whole story, but the fragments of the conversation began to fit together in his mind. Something was wrong. These two boys weren't just talking. They were grappling with some great fear, a fear that their young age shouldn't have to bear. Ben shook his head, eyes glistening, voice full of confusion. "But what if we get caught? What will they do to us? This is wrong." Each word rang like an alarm bell in Elon's head. Wrong. Caught. These words were not meant to be playful. This was not a game. Behind the two children's words was real desperation, a pain that was silent but no less intense. Elon frowned, his mind now filled with questions. Who were these two boys? What was happening to their mother? And why did they feel so helpless to discuss something so dangerous? In that moment, a feeling of doubt and urgency crept into Elon's heart. He knew he could ignore it and move on, focusing on the burger that was waiting for him. But no, something in Ben's sad eyes and Lucas's trembling voice wouldn't let him ignore it. Standing at the counter, Elon regained his composure, his eyes still on the two boys. He knew he had to find out, not just out of curiosity, but because he had a clear feeling that these two children were on the brink of a decision that could change their lives. And so, this unexpected encounter began a journey Elon never thought he would experience that evening. Elon tried to concentrate, his heart pounding as he listened more closely to the urgent whispers from across the table. Lucas was speaking, his voice tense and determined, as if he were grasping for one last thread to cling to. "We have no choice," Lucas said, his voice cracking under the weight of his emotions. "Mom needs medicine now. If we don't do it, she won't make it. Don't you understand, Ben?" Ben, sitting across from her, bowed his head, his small hands clasped together, as if trying to find some measure of courage in the situation. "But what if we get caught?" Ben whispered, his voice shaking as if he were about to cry. "They won't just take the money back, Lucas. They'll call the police. We could go to jail. Do you think that will help Mom?" The words made Lucas quiet for a second, but then he leaned closer, his eyes burning as he fought his own fear. "Ben, I don't want to do this," he almost hissed, keeping his voice as low as he could but still filled with desperation. "But there's no way. Mom doesn't have insurance. The money's gone. No one to help us. If we don't do something, she'll die. Do you want to lose her?" Lucas's words cut through the air like a knife, making everything seem to stop. Ben raised his head, tears already welling up in his eyes. "But stealing is wrong, Lucas. Mom would never want us to do this, even if—" He stopped, unable to form the remaining words. Elon felt the atmosphere in the cafe grow heavy. He couldn't stop thinking about what he had just heard. This was not the story of naughty children. This was the struggle of two children too young to face the harshness of life. The pain was palpable in their words. The fear of losing the only person they loved. The helplessness of knowing that no one could help. Lucas bowed his head to the table, his thin shoulders shaking. "I don't know what to do, Ben. I just want to save Mom. If you had another way, I would. But right now, this is the only way." Ben was silent, his small hands clutching the edge of his shirt as if trying to cling to some glimmer of hope. But his eyes, full of tears and fear, said he had no other answer. Elon clenched his fists, as if the boy's despair was seeping into his own. This was not a problem the boys should have to face. They were at a dangerous crossroads where one wrong decision could ruin both of their futures and do little to help their mother. He knew he couldn't wait any longer. The story of the two children was clear. A mother who was gravely ill, with no money for medical treatment, and two children so desperate that they were considering breaking every rule they knew to be right. Elon took a deep breath, his eyes darting toward the counter. He wasn't just listening to this story. He had to do something. Elon stood at the counter, his eyes still on the two boys, their heads bowed and their hands shaking. He knew he had to act now, but he also knew that one small mistake could cause Lucas and Ben to panic and put them in more danger. He calmly ordered 2 more burgers and fries. With the bag in hand, Elon took a deep breath, trying to calm his racing heart. Even as a businessman facing billions of dollars of pressure every day, he still felt a little nervous as he prepared to approach the two children. This was not a business negotiation or a strategy meeting. This was a story about compassion. Elon walked over to the boys' table, a soft smile on his face. "Hello, kids," he said in a warm, friendly voice. "I think I ordered a little too much food. Would you two help me eat some?" Lucas and Ben immediately raised their heads, their eyes filled with surprise as they looked at the man standing before them. Lucas initially flinched, his eyes filled with wariness. Ben, with a confused expression on his face, didn't know how to react. "It's okay, I'm not forcing you. I just don't want to waste food," Elon continued, trying to sound friendly. He put the bag of food down on the table, then sat down across from the two boys. "Do you mind if I sit here?" Lucas glanced at Ben, seemingly testing his brother's intentions. Ben nodded slightly, and after a moment's hesitation, Lucas spoke, his voice still a little guarded. "It's okay. Just sit down." Elon smiled, took out 2 burgers and placed them in front of the two boys. "Here, try some. The burgers here are delicious, aren't they?" Both boys stared at their food, as if they couldn't believe their eyes. Lucas hesitated, but then he reached up and slowly opened the burger. Ben looked at his brother, then followed suit. A few seconds passed in silence, but it wasn't an uncomfortable silence. "My name is Elon," he began, his voice still soft. "What are your names?" Lucas hesitated, then replied, "I'm Lucas, and this is my brother, Ben." "Nice to meet you two," Elon said, his eyes friendly. "I didn't mean to eavesdrop, but I heard a little of your conversation. It sounds like you're dealing with something very difficult." Elon's words made both boys stop, frozen. Ben lowered the burger he was holding, his eyes red. Lucas clenched his fists, trying to look strong, but his shoulders were shaking. "I'm not here to bother you or scold you," Elon continued. "I just want to help, if you'll let me." Lucas looked into Elon's eyes, as if trying to determine if the man was sincere. He wasn't used to receiving help from others, especially from a stranger. But there was something about Elon's eyes and voice that made him feel safe, that made his defenses slowly fall. "I want to help your mother," Elon said, his voice full of affection. "And I believe we can find a better way to do it." Those words seemed to touch Lucas and Ben's hearts. In that moment, the tense atmosphere gradually eased, giving way to a fragile glimmer of hope, but enough to change everything. Elon sat back comfortably, trying to keep the atmosphere light and not add to the tension between the two boys. He smiled, his eyes soft as he looked at Lucas and Ben, as if to reassure them that they could say anything without being judged. "So, do you guys want to tell me what's going on?" Elon asked, his voice warm and concerned. Lucas, after a few seconds of silence, raised his head slightly. His eyes wavered for a moment, but he finally sighed, as if the burden on his shoulders was too great to bear any longer. My mom has cancer," he began, his voice hoarse with emotion. Elon nodded slightly, not interrupting, just listening quietly, his eyes focused entirely on the boy. Lucas continued, his words broken by emotion. We don't have health insurance. We sold everything in the house, from the furniture to Mom's old car. But that's not enough. Mom's medicine is expensive. Ben sat beside him, his eyes red, but trying not to cry. He clenched his small hands, as if trying to contain his emotions. We did our best, he said softly, his voice shaking. Elon leaned forward, as if to close the distance between the two boys, to make himself feel safer. I understand. I know this isn't easy, he said, his voice encouraging, but still sympathetic. Lucas took a deep breath, as if trying to muster the courage to tell the truth he had been keeping hidden. The idea of stealing. He paused, as if choking on the words, then bowed his head, his small shoulders shaking. It wasn't what we wanted to do, but we were helpless. Mom needed the medicine right now, and there was no other way. Elon could feel the pain in the boy's words. These were not the actions of naughty children, but the cries of two young souls pushed to the limit. His heart ached as he watched Lucas struggle to hold back his tears, while Ben silently wiped away the tears that had just fallen. I understand, Elon said, his voice low and sincere. I know how helpless it is to see someone you love suffer. But Lucas, Ben, stealing won't solve the problem. It will only make things worse for you and for Mom. Lucas looked up at Elon, his eyes conflicted. But what are we supposed to do? He said, his voice breaking. No one is helping us. No one cares. Elon shook his head, his eyes firm but gentle. That's not true, Lucas. There are people who are willing to help. You just have to trust them and give them a chance. I'm here to help, and I'll do whatever it takes to make sure your mother gets the care she needs. Ben looked at Elon, surprised and skeptical. You really want to help us? Why? We don't even know you. Elon smiled, his eyes filled with love. Because I believe no one should have to face this challenge alone, especially when you are so young. And I believe we can always find a better solution, together. Elon's words seemed to light a small ray of hope in Lucas and Ben's tired eyes. In that moment, the burden on the two boys' shoulders seemed to lighten a bit. They began to believe that maybe, just maybe, the miracle they needed was right in front of them. Elon looked Lucas straight in the eye, his voice calm but determined. Lucas, Ben, I know you're scared, but I need you to understand that stealing is not the way to go. It won't help your mother. It will only make things worse. Lucas bowed his head, his hands gripping the edge of the table, as if trying to hold on to the last shred of hope. But we had no choice. He choked, his voice breaking. You don't understand. We tried everything. I couldn't let her go. Elon sat closer, his eyes full of sympathy. I understand, Lucas. I really do. I've seen people fall into despair, thinking they have no way out. But what you need to do is not break the rules, but seek help. And I'm here to help you. Ben looked up at him, his eyes filled with tears, but also with doubt. You say you want to help, but how can you? The medicine is expensive. We have nothing to pay you back. Elon smiled, gently placing his hand on the boy's shoulder. Ben, you don't have to pay me back. I'm not here to ask for anything. I just want to make sure your mother gets the care she needs. Let me take care of that. Lucas looked at him, not believing what he was hearing. You mean, you're going to pay for my mom's medicine? All of it? Elon nodded, his voice firm. Yes, everything. Not just the medicine, but the medical bills and everything your mother needs to recover. You don't have to worry anymore. Those words were like a gust of wind that blew a huge burden off the shoulders of the two boys. Lucas fell silent, his eyes fixed on Elon, as if searching for one last reassurance. When he realized that Elon wasn't joking, tears suddenly welled up in his eyes, falling down his cheeks without stopping. I don't know what to say, Lucas said through sobs, his voice trembling. Ben, unable to contain himself, burst into tears too, but this time not from fear or anxiety, but from a sense of relief he had never felt before. You really did that for my mom? Elon leaned down, his eyes full of love. Yes, but you have to promise me one thing. Be strong, stay together, and continue to take care of your mother. Just by doing that, you will have already paid me back so much. Lucas nodded, his shoulders relaxing as if he could finally breathe after days of being suffocated by worry. Thank you so much, he said, his voice breaking. Elon smiled, a smile filled with both determination and sincerity. He knew that this was one of the best decisions he had ever made. With a heart full of compassion, he brought the two boys not only help, but also a ray of hope, something they thought had long since disappeared. Before leaving, Elon took a piece of paper from his pocket and quickly wrote down a phone number. He gently placed it in Lucas's hand, his eyes filled with trust and encouragement. This is the number of a manager at my charity. They will take care of all your mother's medical expenses. Everything will be taken care of. You don't have to worry about anything anymore. Lucas clutched the piece of paper tightly in his hand, his eyes shining with a hope he never believed possible. He nodded slightly, his voice choked but filled with determination. We won't let you down. We'll take care of Mom. Ben, sitting next to his brother, said nothing, just nodded vigorously, tears rolling down his cheeks. The boy seemed to feel that all the burdens the two brothers had been carrying had been lifted. Elon stood up, his eyes softening as he looked at the two boys one last time. Remember, Lucas, Ben, never give up hope. No matter how hard things get, you still have your family. You still have each other. That's what matters most. As he walked out of the cafe, the gentle sunlight fell on Elon's shoulders. A sense of peace filled his heart. He knew that his actions had not only saved a family, but also planted seeds of hope and faith in the good things in life. This story isn't just about Elon Musk or Lucas and Ben. It's about kindness, compassion, and the power of small, heartfelt acts to change lives. In a world full of hardships, a little kindness can make a world of difference.